either apartments or homes. More than 1/3 of that is located east of the planned route of the Israeli separation barrier, so the wall. And east of that barrier would be what is supposed to be Palestinian land. If this means it's the first government since the early 1990s, which also happens to be the last time Netanyahu was in power, to break the agreement of previous governments with respect to settlements. So the agreement was not to build on the land that they're currently building on, and this is the first government to break that agreement. This is from Peace Now, which is an Israeli group that actually is supportive of the two-state solution. So not readable either, so I'll read it aloud. So the Israeli government justification for this, there's a couple. So the first one is, and this is actually a historian who made this argument, demolishing the homes of civilians merely because a family member has committed a crime is immoral. If, however, potential suicide murderers will refrain from killing out of fear that their mothers will become homeless, it would be immoral to leave the Palestinian mothers untouched in their homes while Israeli children die on the school buses. So basically this argument is that there were suicide bombers on the Palestinian side protesting the Israeli occupation and resisting against it using suicide bombers. And he considered that home demolitions of people's homes to be... so during the Second Intifada, that's cut off too, the IDF adopted a policy of home demolition in response to suicide bombings as a deterrent. The Israeli Army Commission actually conducted its own study and found that the damage caused by these demolitions actually overrides their effectiveness. So this is the Israeli Army Commission's own study that found this. But since then, home demolitions actually have stopped. That wasn't really listened to. And the last suicide bombing actually occurred in 2001. So basically that 2009, 2013 that we've been talking about has nothing to do with suicide bombings, obviously. So the justification is that the homes that are demolished are illegal homes, that they don't have a permit. So the problem with that is that when Palestinians actually request permits, only 10% of them so far have been approved. While obviously the 90% of approvals go to actually I don't know if this goes that way, but most of the approvals that go to Jewish or Israeli citizens. So that means that if you're Palestinian, your chances of actually getting your own home, which you already live in, approved by the state is 10%. And this argument doesn't really even include the demolitions that occur in the West Bank, which are referred by the Israeli government to as declaration of state land. So that's just what they say this is declared as state land, kind of like I guess in America we have that concept as well. This is declared as state land, and this includes approximately 73% of the West Bank, and that was from 1998. So 73% of the West Bank has been declared as state land, and that's why you saw in that picture from before why it looked kind of porous. So state land means that, well, what happens when something's classified as state land is that anyone who is an alien on state land is prohibited from building or renting on that land. The problem with that is that, by definition, an alien is an alien is not someone who would not be considered an alien, is an Israeli citizen, someone who's immigrated to Israel under the Israeli law of return, someone who's entitled to the status of immigrant under the law of return, i.e. a Jew or by descent or religion, or 4, a company controlled by 1, 2, or 3. So I read that directly from the legal edict by the Israeli government, which I got from Amnesty International. So that means that basically if you were born there and you're Palestinian, you are an alien. And aliens cannot, as I said, rent or build on that land. So why Caterpillar? Caterpillar is currently has built tools and bulldozers that are being used in these illegal home demolitions, in the construction of settlements, and in military incursions as weapons. And this specifically, the one that mainly we focus on is the D9 bulldozer built and maintained by Caterpillar. So to kind of establish the link even further, Caterpillar has their dealer in Israel, the Israel Tractors and Equipment, ITE, that's responsible for its sales and is partnering with Israeli military industries in a program to weaponize and armor the D9. So they're directly involved in actual weaponization of the D9 Caterpillar, or D9 bulldozer. So just to address some counter-arguments that we expect and infer, this one is actually by Jim Dugan, who's the chief corporate spokesperson of Caterpillar. He said, this is how it works. Caterpillar sells equipment to the U.S. government, which then transfers the equipment to the Israeli government, which then transfers it to the Israeli military. And that's Jim Dugan, like I said. That was this next one. Sorry, that was the next slide. So in response, a spokesman at the DoD Office of Public Affairs has said that any company that may decline to participate in any contract under the Foreign Military Sales Program. So the argument that they are out of control is obviously rejected by the DoD. Caterpillar does sell some equipment through the U.S. Foreign Military Sales Program that we're talking about, but they also sell indirectly to Israeli contractors known to be involved in selling construction through the direct commercial sales, which are referred to as DCS. Caterpillar's representative, Zoppo Enterprises, provides ongoing maintenance to CAT equipment and includes during their military operations and settlement construction. So now you've heard two names of organizations that Caterpillar uses directly to sell and maintain their equipment for the Israeli government. So next argument. CEO James Owens, he's the CEO of Caterpillar, said that the company did not have the practical ability or legal right to determine how our products are used after they are sold. So, and another quote from Jim Dugan said that we hope and wish for a peaceful resolution to the unrest in the Middle East, but that solution is a political matter, and that solution is a political matter to be worked out by the appropriate parties. Caterpillar does not and should not have a role in that political process. So that's the argument about how to not, how involved. But the response, the UN, first of all, the UN norms on responsibilities of transnational corporations, basically the UN's regulations on corporations, international corporations, says that companies should not engage in or benefit from human rights violations and shall seek to ensure their goods and services will not be used to abuse human rights. So that's kind of the international law aspect to it. But Caterpillar's own code of conduct actually includes that Caterpillar accepts the responsibilities of global citizenship and must take into account the social, economic, political, and economic priorities. So, I mean, you can see from both sides that these aren't things that they should be ignoring. But even further, to show that Caterpillar hasn't really distanced themselves from the illegal operations going on. Like I said, ITE is the exclusive dealer. It has an exclusive dealer in Israel responsible for the sales. But Caterpillar's representatives has actually, like I said, sent its employees on the battlefield to repair and maintain weaponized bulldozers. And Mr. Bill Lane, who's the Washington Director for Government Affairs for Caterpillar, spoke at APAC in 2013. So there's definitely direct connections. Okay, so almost done here. So counter-argument, it's actually I think the last counter-argument we're going to address. We've heard that the Palestinian Authority uses Caterpillar equipment. It's just what people have said. The problem with that is the Palestinian Authority is not actually democratically elected. And the real reason why we're here is because over 170 Palestinian political parties, organizations, trade unions, and movements have all called for divestment. So this is a wide-ranging effort which expands past Palestinian political parties, obviously, because it's now an international movement, and calls upon these crimes, obviously, to be addressed. So the Palestinian Authority does not represent these people. The Palestinian Authority hasn't said nothing about anything I've said in the presentation, so it really doesn't change anything, to be honest, about what we're talking about. So hopefully that helps. We have more copies of stuff from the people walking in, so if you didn't get a copy, hopefully we have more copies. Yeah. And with that, we'll go to Q&A. So my name's Ahmad. If you just came in, that's Lily, and Ibrahim was the president, actually. Three of us and a lot of other people, especially Richard here, worked on the bill, so all of us are available to answer questions right now if anybody has any questions. If I spoke too fast, let me know. So any questions about the bill, or problems with it, or concerns? Things you don't understand, or typos, if there's any typos as well.
Yeah, part of it is actually, so if there's a specific phrase that you have a problem with, then either we can address it and try to fix it, or compromise on it. We don't want it to be anti-anybody, so.
It's based on the ASU Foundation. The ASU Foundation isn't actually affiliated with the ASU, it's some private, like corporate.
Which affiliate you mean? Not
it's not
financially?
Yeah, it's not like they're like two separate entities. Yeah. So like ASU Foundation isn't publicly funded, so they don't have to like actually. They just what they do is like contact other alumni and they facilitate donations that would transfer over to ASU. So they're kind of like just like a feeder into ASU, but they're not actually affiliated.
Yeah. So and thanks for bringing that up actually, because in the title has to do with our image and our values, but the bill does stop kind of short. It only looks at ASU Foundation stocks, but like I was talking about before, we're talking to Dr. Ryan, we're talking to the administration about looking for more investments, because we know, especially with U of A, who's also conducting a similar campaign, operating funds of the universities are also being used on these things. You know, the ABOR itself also has funds that it uses to invest in other companies. So this bill is a start, and I think once we get the broad-based support that we want for it, we can talk more about who else we should look at in terms of funds, because I think that's a really important question, I think, strategically for us, but it's not as much a question of whether or not we should divest, I think. And I think that's hopefully what we can come to an agreement upon, or at least talk about tonight. So thanks for doing that.
Isn't sort of like the point that like we're not really divesting even if this bill passes?
Well, the first thing we're doing is we're making a stance as a student, as a group of students, right? That's the first thing we're doing, and that's actually probably the most important thing because, as we all know, politics and student government are, at least state politics are different than student government. So our government's not going to make a stance. Our student government's not going to actually force anything. So the first thing we need to do is to make that student voice get heard. So
would it be like preferable to pass a bill that's like ASU condemns the settlement building in the West Bank? Wouldn't that be like a statement rather than we should divest, because we're not really like divesting? And if you're trying to make a statement, why wouldn't we make the statement?
We obviously can't force ASU Foundation to do anything. We'd like them to remove investment in Caterpillar, but as USG, we can say we have a voice that represents the students, and we can voice their concerns in advocating divestment from Caterpillar.
Like, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. No, it's actually like kind of very strong. I feel like this is the start. Looking at it from the lens of a student, I feel like it's a start. Once we make our voices like our students, let's say the 10th campus first, and then all other, if possible, like all other campuses. I feel like the more weight behind the word, like the easier it'll be to listen to us. So it's like, okay, well, for example, all four campuses have made a stance. Therefore, ASU has made a stance, and this is what they believe. I feel like, what does that say about our university if they don't take that into account? And I feel like this is the start. Yes, it might not directly call for the divestment. It might not like any set an action in like a movement yet, but it's a start. Like once we have this and this passes, we've already started, and then it can pass at other campuses. It can call for an action. It can lead. It can grow into something bigger.
Right. Yeah, that like clearly shows like how divestment would like work. But I'm curious, if you're trying to make a statement, like why wouldn't you make a statement?
Well, I think the bill makes the statements
Okay.
as it calls for divestment. It makes a statement that we would denounce it. But you're right. I mean, I think we could add more language. To be honest, the way it's written now is so specific because we were worried that that language wouldn't be approved of by some people. So, I mean, if you want to help us write more statements denouncing, or you can just recommend that. Let's move on.
The United Nations has resolutions against it, and the Geneva Convention calls them illegal, so I don't think we need it.
Yeah, I mean, like we're not like a legal body. We can't call them illegal on our own. You know.
Right. We could just say that we disagree with it. I have another question just about the club in general.
Sure.
What is like, I don't know about SJP like very much about it. What is like the peaceful solution you see in the region?
Sure. So as an organization, we don't really take a stance on that. We just take a stance on justice. So human rights violations are wrong, obviously. One state, two state, no state. That'll come after we solve the human rights violations.
So yeah, we don't make political statements like
Personally, we probably all we might even have different views.
So there's no like club like stance on it.
No.
There's no
there
consensus.
Yeah, but if you saw from that last picture, this is now me personally speaking. A two-state solution is almost not going to happen because of the settlements.
And
it's definitely something else we want to, make pertinent, which is that so many organizations have agreed that the reason why peace negotiations are not happening, going as expected, is because of the settlement building. So I think that that the first step is to stop settlement building, and then people can actually have a conversation, right? It's too far in the future to say, oh yeah, we're aiming for a two-state solution. You have to really stop whatever obstacles there are before we can have that conversation.
I believe in a two-state solution. There are other people in SJP do, but we still work together to find contributions towards immediate concerns like the settlement situation. So yeah.
So I have a question about sort of the ending of it, really. Just, you call for the divestment from Caterpillar, but you really leave it as a blank or an open book into saying, if there are companies that meet any of these criteria, the following criteria that are listed, which was provide weaponry or military support for the occupation of the Palestinian territory, which is very broad, by the way. Facilitate the building or maintenance of the wall or the demolition of Palestinian homes, also pretty broad. It could be a lot of different companies there. And facilitate the building, maintenance, or economic development of legal settlements. Again, very broad. This is, to me, this bill just seems like, you claim it's just Caterpillar, but you're using it sort of seems like, are you using that for, to really open up the books and say, let's investigate all the companies and really identify different ones we want to divest from. If this was just about Caterpillar, that's one thing.
So is your question, are there more companies we would want to divest from?
There's that, and is this really about Caterpillar, or is it about getting the books open and finding all the companies that you guys are interested in divesting from as you find, and obviously that's it's your opinion to do that, but what is the real intent of that bill then?
Yeah, so this bill it's funny because it's like kind of the opposite. We started with the bill 2 years ago that was general, like what you're saying, it was just everything. But they didn't really do anything because who's going to make that criteria, who's going to make those decisions. So this bill is about just Caterpillar. But obviously the reasons we have for Caterpillar are the same reasons we have for other companies. But there are other companies that we would target. It's just that we want to start something, we want to start specific. Because we want there to be like consensus that, well, we know this one actually is doing something that is illegal according to national law. So.
Right, and we tend to face this sort of like double bind argument where when we, target a bunch of companies, people will come out and say, well, why not add more companies, or like, does this actually do anything? Because Apple and HP are so powerful. Like, how are we actually going to divest from them? And then when we choose one company, people will come out and say, well, why aren't you picking more? So it's like we can't really win on any of those specific numbers. So in this case, we just chose to go smaller.
Caterpillar definitely kind of is a principal actor in the settlement construction, though. I would be surprised if there was a company that was obstinately persisting in their assistance to the settlement construction, knowing the illegality that's going on. So Caterpillar I can't think of another company that's contributing to the explosive situation like Caterpillar is.
I can think of a few.
Not maybe, yeah. There are probably others out there.
Yeah. That's not. Yeah. So I guess if the kind of other question is, are there like ulterior motives to the bill? I hope we're kind of clear that those are motives on this stuff.
I'm not calling like ulterior motives, but it just it leaves the door open to really a big investigation. It leaves it to at least in my opinion, thinking like all right, you're saying it's a Caterpillar, but you leave the door so wide open that it seems like your intention is to then go and find all the other companies you can.
Yeah. Do you have a problem with that? Or?
What?
Is that like a bad thing? Or?
Do you disagree?
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying, well, if you wanted to be focused on all the bill or all the companies, or just a wide open investigation, you should say that instead of saying this is focused on Caterpillar and making it all about Caterpillar.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Well,
it's pretty misleading.
So you disagree in the way lines 110 through 112 are worded?
No.
I disagree with just the fact that this whole bill it's focused on divest from Caterpillar, and then the way you end it, because you would think if you're divesting Caterpillar, it should be focused on Caterpillar, but this is ending completely broad to any company, and that to me doesn't really make sense. If you want it to be any company, say all companies, and let's just investigate that rather than focus on Caterpillar. No, I understand that completely, but that's really where I'm seeing this, and obviously it's your decision on how the bill is written, but. It just leaves it, the ending, if you want to focus on if the bill's about Caterpillar, ending with Caterpillar.
Okay, that makes sense. We'll look into that.
Okay. So, so would you say, I don't really see where like the kind of loss of that inclusion of that statement, because if the point of this was to be specific and get something done, where we allow for more to get done, and that more doesn't happen for whatever reason, and get what we started with, is that a problem, or is that, it seems like then we're just missing out on, what we left in there.
Well, I'm not saying that. You shouldn't be actively pursuing divestment if that's your course of action. But to just overly encompassing, give the power to say, I want to look into everything, and to me that just is saying, this is a bill that should be focused on Caterpillar. If that's even in the title, this is about Caterpillar, and then to branch off of that. It's misleading.
Yeah,
so maybe we should change the title at that point. Then. Yeah. Maybe we should change the title. Say, we'll divest from companies, including Caterpillar, or mainly Caterpillar. Because I was gonna say, like, in my ideal world is that ASU is not invested in any company involved in any human rights abuse anywhere in the world, right? But if we wrote a bill like that, which we've done in the past, it doesn't do anything. So, this is the attempt to be specific, but not say that. Caterpillar is the only company that's doing bad things, but that's obviously not true. And so like if there's any company, we would be supportive of that, but obviously we have limited time and resources now.
I would just say that with the likelihood of it being passed, I think it would be more likely to be passed if you kept it just, because I know it is a catch-22, but I think it would be more likely to pass if you just focused on Caterpillar, so not ending it with the way that it's ended right now.
Line 110?
Yeah.
110 or 102?
No.
It's the,
110 through 112.
I thought it was 96.
it's kind of 102.
It's also 96 on, really.
Yeah, that's 96. I mean, you want 110 on, right? Or no?
96?
I think there's 102. This one was talking about other.
They resolved the
This
issue.
would really just be a starting place, and then you could, you're not talking about other companies, because we tried that approach in the past, that hasn't worked, just from a purely,
Procedural.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
I have just another question about current events.
Yeah.
Like, why are they armored? Like, are ones that we have here, like Caterpillar, things armored?
No.
Oh, just the D9. I mean, they sell those publicly. I did a little research. The D9 is armored for, in combat situations.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's armored.
What kind of combat's going on, like, in the West Bank?
So they're from military incursions, so they include,
Military incursion include the Gaza Strip too.
yeah, Gaza Strip, but there's no real wars in the West Bank.
Right, that's why I was like,
There's no rocket.
I didn't know if there was one that I didn't like know about.
No, there's no rocket fire in the West Bank either.
So say they want to invade one of the refugee camps in the West Bank? So there is refugee camps in the West Bank.
Do they like just invade them?
So if they have
Like at a whim or
if
something?
they have like a civilian they want to arrest, a lot of times, so this is like just from what I know, a lot of times the people of the refugee camp will try to block the roads. So then they'll bring the bulldozer and move all the rocks.
Yeah, I have a long report presentation that actually goes into that and it has citations on that we shortened it. Yeah, so basically what's called detention of civilians, things like that happens usually in night raids that sometimes we'll use capital. And they use a lot of times to move debris and things like that to move roads.
And to bulldoze the homes, obviously these things are 2 stories high and several tons, so you can just truck a house down.
they're often also used to bulldoze away agricultural land, so like olive trees, they're primarily used for that as well.
And then in the West Bank, there's very few weapons because of the borders being closed. So one of the main weapons is rocks being thrown. So one of these breaking down a house and rocks being thrown at it are
Yeah, if someone comes to your house with a bulldozer, and you're probably gonna try to stop them with at least something.
Right. Yeah. And this is kind of Q&A, but it was also kind of open forum, so if anybody wants to make a statement, so it's an answer to your question, so we can let people just stand up and talk if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just address some things, I guess, because I know that you guys, I'm sure, have concerns about, it being anti-Israel and whatnot, right? And I think that, again, the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement is so broad, and maybe some people, have poor rhetoric or their goals are different. But for us, I can definitely say that, this is not an anti-Israel bill. It's meant to be anti-settlement activity specifically, and that's why we really wanted to target Caterpillar, which, as Richard said before, is one of the main culpable agents in this.
Right.
And not just anti-settlement, it's more of a pro-human rights in general. There's a huge focus on that in this bill. So that's just a big factor in this.
Israel's bad on human rights.
No,
level?
that's
Is
no.
Palestine better than?
No.
Okay.
It's human rights in general all over the world.
Okay,
We're not
okay,
just
okay.
focusing
That's
on
right.
Palestine.
Right, okay.
So it's partly, like we said in the beginning, it's because we're complicit and we want to.
Yeah, that's why that last clause was included, because if we can find any companies that are funding any kind of Palestinian abuses, if that happens to Israelis, then we would divest from them too. But, and so if anybody knows of anything like that, we would, that's something we would divest.
If you found that we were tied to Hamas or something like that, I wouldn't want our money going there. Or maybe an organization like, there are other terrorist groups out there. So, yeah.
I mean, and it's already illegal to invest in.
That's true, yeah.
So you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, like it's unlikely to see our money voting laws.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's also important that, to not exceptionalize Israel in any way, because every country has human rights abuses and whatnot, right? And then, just because, it's just because we're SJP, so this is what we do, right? But if, for example, if Tibetan students wanted to call for a boycott of Chinese products, I would totally put my support behind that as well. And so, yeah, I think you're right, definitely, that people should be concerned about BDS, having anti-Semitic language and rhetoric and stuff. I definitely try to correct.
Some people in BDS are kind of out there and crazy.
And that actually reminds me of what I kind of alluded to before about what we want to add to the bill that's kind of left. So now we have these things to think about, but we also already kind of wanted to add a clause that was talking about Caterpillar's involvement on the U.S.-Mexico border and militarizing our own border and funneling, immigrants and migrants that are just trying to, find a safe place to live and a place for their family into more dangerous areas of the desert that would basically result in a lot of deaths, which has been happening on the border. So that's information that's the arguments we want to add to the bill as well. So it's not, in the end, going to just be about events going on in Israel-Palestine.
I don't know if that would be particularly beneficial to add, particularly because it's not their right to illegally enter our country.
The argument.
Well, that's a completely different argument.
Yeah, it's not
Probably
just saying,
shouldn't
I
even
don't know
talk
if you
about
should go into that on your bill because it's not particularly beneficial.
I mean, especially in Arizona,
It's not
I don't feel like it's
necessarily-
going to garner much support.
That's another event
It's not
for another time.
comparable to what's going on in the West Bank.
We can talk about that.
Sure, yeah.
That's one of the I guess.
Yeah, that's a different.
I would also agree as well. I think slimming it down just to one issue for this company would be more beneficial in the long run.
Yeah.
For the short run, in the long run, maybe. So.
Yeah, maybe it's something we should discuss more than the actual languages in the bill, but because these are also human rights abuses. It's not just we're not saying we're supporting anything that people would oppose or saying literally human rights violations of the things we oppose.
The problem I think I had with just focusing on one thing, what if they switch to another company that's just as equally as complicit?
Yeah,
that's why I think we should kind of leave it open a little bit at least.
Yeah, I mean that's a legitimate thing. I would just say the whole point of this and the whole point of divestment in general, and I'd say the tactic of boycott in general in the civil rights movement is that you make it stigmatized to basically be profiting from human rights violations. You make it so that it's not profitable to profit from human rights violations because nobody wants to associate with you if you're doing things that are wrong. That's how it worked in the civil rights movement, and that's how it's worked in other movements as well. So I mean, yeah, that's just kind of the tactic of boycott works. That it's meant to make human rights violations difficult. So hopefully that's what this is doing.
Since we got time, I might as well.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's so early. So you think that settlements are an obstacle to peace?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. What happened during that period between 1999? You gave the dates, 1999 and 2008. That there were Netanyahu wasn't the ruler. There was no.
Yeah. They weren't approving new settlement construction.
Right, and yeah, so
and now
again,
they
in
start
2008 there
approving
were a number of months where there was no settlement construction with the hopes that there would be a peaceful agreement, but there wasn't.
Or 2009.
It
started the stat I used was starting in 2009.
Right, so in 2008, before that, there was a halting of the settlement building. Initially for, I want to say 5 months, and then it was extended another 5 months at the request of the Palestinian Authority in hopes that there would be a peaceful resolution, and there wasn't. So I'm wondering, how long do we need to halt settlements for before there would be a peaceful resolution?
During that same time, they were still bulldozing Palestinian homes. So they didn't.
I mean, they were still occupying Palestine. So, do you think settlements are a good thing?
What was that?
Do you think settlements are a good thing and that they should be built in the West Bank?
I think that it's going to be really hard to kick all the Jews out, but if there is going to be a place for them to go, a peaceful land that they would be able to go
They
out
actually
from,
recently did a poll about that. They polled different Jewish people living in settlements,
Right.
and it's the opinion is growing more to the side where they would be willing to leave as long as the Israel government gave them compensation. So that sentiment is definitely growing, especially in areas around the Jordan
Right.
Valley.
And I think that the Israeli people, I think a lot of the Jewish people would be okay with that, but for that to happen, there needs to be a prospect of a place for them to go. And I think my thought is that these aren't specifically, settlements are not the obstacle of the peace in particular, because we halted settlements, Israel halted settlements, and they're still with their peace. So I'm just wondering, like, how long the settlements would be halted for? I mean, obviously you guys aren't the Palestinian authorities, so you aren't going to be able to make that decision.
Well, I have a specific question for you. What are your views on the Palestinian right of return?
That's a different topic. How about we bring that up later?
Well, I just ask, like, because the premise of your question is that stopping home demolitions will lead to peace, and we should only stop them for as long as they lead to peace. Why can't they stop forever? Like, why should they continue?
Well, I think that what he was asking though is, we stopped in the hopes that you would come to the table and work out a permanent stop to it, so that way we wouldn't.
But who's the one who has control of the stop?
Yeah, that's not answering his question.
The
answer to your question, right? The answer to your question is, sorry, repeat the question one more time. I had it in my head.
Sorry, so
I didn't know that wasn't the right answer.
You finished the question. I was just
okay, sure. Because the premise of your question is that the Israeli government only needs to stop building homes for as long as it leads to peace. But I'm saying, why should they be building homes?
Because they don't know what's going to be the outcome of that land.
Because they already know the outcome. People live there right now.
No, I know. I'm saying they don't know what if that land ends up being Jewish land, the portion where the settlements are. Then if they would demolish all of them, and then that ends up being Israel, then they just wasted all that previous infrastructure that they had built. So if they know,
who would demolish this?
I'm saying, like, if the Jews leave their homes, right, and they come to Israel, you're saying if the Jews stop building settlements, Israel stops building settlements in the West Bank.
Stop building new settlements.
Stop building new settlements, and that land, like, would be Israel. Let's say there becomes an agreement at the end of all the fighting. There becomes an agreement. Everybody living in peace, and they have some land that is Israel that they could have been building it, but they didn't because of the settlements. They were just wasting their time, but they could have been building it.
So you're saying they should plan.
So I'm saying if they knew that that's not going to be Israel, they'd stay out because they don't want to infringe on Palestine.
Well,
that's going to be so.
It's unlikely that the Palestinians would agree to any deal where they would get less than the 1967 borders, because that would be unfair.
Not even that. I mean, it's just. I mean, you're saying they should plan for having more of the land than they already.
It shouldn't be about.
There's tons of other places in Israel that can build stuff. I mean,
but they already live there. I'm saying that
we're talking about building new settlements.
They would be fine leaving if there was a peaceful place for them to go.
Okay, yeah,
we're not going to come to an answer on that. I'm just curious.
No, that's a legitimate point. The first thing I would just think is an analogy I've heard a lot is, how can you, like, say we were splitting the pizza, how can we split the pizza while I'm eating with pieces?
Okay.
And so, that's kind of the question comes to me is if, actually that's going back to that, and that's a good point. When I mentioned the recent building about Netanyahu's plan, that building is in what is past the border, like you're saying. So it's basically saying, okay, we want to have a peace talk, we want to split this into two states, but the areas that we have said we would allocate to the Palestinian state, we're going to continue building them. Yeah. That's why between 2009 and 2016,
and even the
area, 1/3 of that building has been in areas that were planned to be Palestinian homes. And honestly, I think, just to be frank, I think what it indicates to me is that there's no really plan for a two-state solution. Because why would they build in the places they're saying we want to be peacefully living next to you when, if they're building on the land?
That's a really fair argument.
That's what I'm saying. To me, there's no indications that they want a two-state solution. That the current regime wants.
I agree with you. Not that they don't want a two-state solution. I would agree with you that that
indicates that they don't want this.
Yeah. But obviously, Netanyahu doesn't represent everyone in Israel, but he doesn't want.
I think we're missing the point.
This is about
the International Court of Justice.
Yeah.
Has issued a bill that says that the settlements should not go within the 1964 border.
67.
67.
Yeah.
So to come and say that we can control when we want to do the settlements or when we can do the settlements, it's not like any court that it's the International Court of Justice.
Yes, so I guess the conversation we're having is kind of outside of law, so it's like, now if we were ignoring international law, then I think that makes sense.
So, essentially right now, Netanyahu has said that he would actually prefer to expand approximately 13% more into what is already Palestinian land. And Mahmoud Abbas, who actually a lot of Palestinians accept him as a leader, but anyways, he even says at most Palestinians would be willing to acquiesce 3 to 4% of the land that is still Palestinian. And so then it looks like, right, to people, oh, Palestinians don't want to make peace, right? They don't agree to this 13% land grab, essentially, and so that sort of justifies more like settlements being built, right? And so there is that problem. So that's why we really just need to have settlements to stop.
What's your opinion on like the recent proposals that would only leave the Jews about 2.5% of the whole area that haven't really been accepted? Do you like? They currently have about 2.5% of the whole West Bank, and they're saying Palestinians got everything else in the West Bank, but Palestinians don't want to accept that. So what do you say? They want peace also?
Could you?
I can elaborate that. I think what's most likely is the 2% they're talking about is East Jerusalem. Am I right?
Also Judea and Samaria.
And that's immensely political, complicated. That's not gonna. It's not reasonable to suggest in the deal the Palestinians are going to give away East Jerusalem when historically that's been a Palestinian place. So that may be 2% of the West Bank, but to the Palestinian nation people, that's their capital.
Okay,
so
I mean,
yeah,
it's fair concern. And one more question, let's just show you guys' opinion about Gaza. So Israel gave Palestinians Gaza in hopes of like some sort of peaceful agreement, and what ended up happening was just rockets firing out. So like, how does Israel ensure that if they leave the West Bank, there becomes two states, Israel,
So have there
Palestine,
been
Gaza?
rockets fired from the West Bank?
No, but Israel's still occupying them with military forces, which is what in my mind means that the reason there's no rocket fires is because Israel is monitoring the area, whereas in Gaza they completely withdrew, not a single troop stationed in Gaza, and 15,000 rockets since.
So do you think? So do you know what structural violence is?
No.
Okay. So structural violence is basically day-to-day, and when I say violence, I mean any kind of oppression on your life, ability to live, ability to eat, ability to get food, electricity, shelter, travel, not go to prison, get a trial, I can keep going, but water, a lot of those things. So, so basically in Gaza, you probably know it's been blockaded. You know that, for example, the UN has called it a humanitarian crisis by 2020.
It's been called the largest open-air prison.
And yeah, these are probably things you've already heard, but point being, they aren't living in peace in Gaza right now. It's not necessarily a peaceful situation for them. So they are resisting because they have something to resist against, which is structural violence.
Mm-hmm.
They only access to food and water they have is through tunnels that they have driven in, and through some aid that's given by the Israeli government. But that's why I kind of just want to question.
In American government as well.
Yeah, if it gets in. But that's why I kind of want to question that premise that Israel has to give this land to the Palestinians. So why should they, like, for example, give them the West Bank when they live there?
Because in 1967, in a war, as in many wars, there are land masses that are taken.
The world would be in chaos.
Yeah, that's something that happened in the 19th century and 18th century.
Yeah, it happened in 1967 as well.
It doesn't mean you can't. It's not might of right.
It's actually been also outlawed that when that military conquest comes with land grabs.
Yeah, after World War II, that was outlawed. So.
Yeah, because World War II has a huge problem, obviously. People were trying to land grab all the time. So.
Well, I mean, people still do. I mean, Russia. I guess they should take Ukraine.
Everyone's angry at Russia now because of it. So. Yeah. Russia behaving.
It's not acceptable.
Okay, and let's change the term. Let's say Israel withdraw from West Bank.
Yeah.
Let's say Israeli troops withdraw. Rather than my terminology of Israel gives Palestinians the West Bank, let's say they withdraw their military forces and potentially all of their settlers as well, occupiers. What's like to say that they're not going to shoot rockets back?
So if they abide, you're saying they shouldn't abide by law.
I'm saying that.
You're asking why should they?
No, personally.
Well, they're not even shooting rockets from the West Bank right now.
Also, the International Court of Justice, and I would happy to one day sit down with you and explore that
No, yeah, actually,
situation.
let's talk about that.
But let's go with the premise that the UN makes completely fair judgments of Israel. Then you're right, 100% they should withdraw everything. The other thing you said about structural violence in the West Bank, or in Gaza rather.
There's in both.
In both, yeah. But the 15,000 rockets are in Gaza, so I'll focus on Gaza. You mentioned actually in your presentation that there have been no suicide bombings since 2008. And I'm curious what other event happened in 2008 that might have prevented those suicide bombings from happening.
So you want me to correlate something that also happened, and you want me to establish causation, or do you want me to just correlate?
I want you to correlate.
Speculation.
Well,
I don't know if it's causation.
Yeah.
I don't either.
I'm just curious what the event was. Like if it was an event that might somehow be correlated.
You can say what you want to say.
Yeah, there was an apartheid wall built around Gaza, a barrier, blockade,
A security fence.
It doesn't matter.
But do you have any direct evidence of cause and effects?
No, so I don't have.
We don't have cause and effect evidence.
I don't have evidence. I can't establish any causation. There's many things I can't establish actual causation about. But coincidentally, there was this security fence built in 2008, and as you stated, there have been 0 suicide bombings since 2008. And I think you're saying it's structural violence. I'm saying it's a necessary thing that's happening because it literally stopped 100% of suicide bombings in Israel, which for me is
So you said
very
stop
important.
it. Stop
It's
it.
necessary to solve the problem for one
I
party.
think it stopped them.
Maybe it does, but it's necessary for Israel to prevent bombings, but it doesn't fill the necessary need to end the occupation and the blockade in Gaza. So it satisfies one party and does nothing for hurts the other. So
And I'm just going to say something, and I'll relate it back to what you're saying. So it seems like if once Israel, acquiesces to Palestinian demands for their land, then I think that Palestinian resentment would really die down, right? Because then people will see that there's a genuine effort being done, and especially if you want to have a two-state solution, you have Gaza and the West Bank. Right now, there's 0 communication between Gaza and the West Bank.
Right.
People aren't allowed to travel and such. And so
government's
once
also
it becomes more contiguous and
Right.
stuff, right? You hear all this about radicalism being fueled, right? And radicalism is fueled when there is an intense structural violence, when there is an occupation going on. And so once I think Israel makes a really good stance and just says, we'll stop the settlements, and make efforts towards a two-state solution, I think that you'll definitely see terrorist attacks go down.
I also heard an interesting quote. It's like, if you treat people like criminals, then they're going to start acting like criminals. If you treat people like savages, they're going to start acting like savages. And let's say what you're saying, they do withdraw from the West Bank. The only reason I see the West Bank firing rockets is that they turn that into a prison like they did Gaza and have it surrounded on all sides. But if they don't do that, it's probably not going to happen. And if they restrict the blockade on Gaza, there's probably not going to be as many things happening or rockets happening.
And again, the International Court of Justice deemed it illegal, knowing all the facts and knowing knowing what both sides think it's for.
Which is not to say that there are no criticisms against it.
Yeah.
Because I also definitely have a lot of criticism about these organizations.
Yeah, nobody's perfect.
You guys don't think that any of the rockets are because Hamas is ruling in the West Bank and Hamas is a terrorist organization funded by Iran and a lot of other.
Do you think every Palestinian supports?
I definitely don't think so, but they're there. So it's how do we know? Also, how do we ensure if we have democratic elections in Palestine, future Palestine, which we're all hoping there's going to be a country called Palestine. They're going to have a democratic election. How do we make sure that there's not going to be another Hamas elected?
If you look at a timeline of when rockets are fired, it's always after Israel does an incursion. They never start it. It's always after Israel does an incursion or kills someone or does something.
there are also
They
extremists in Israel too.
For sure.
Who just want to straight up annex everything.
By Israeli people. They're not
Yeah, that's good.
somebody shot Israel prime minister. He was a Jewish Israeli guy.
Yeah.
And he's not revered in Israel.
Yeah.
A good book to read is called Goliath, and it tells you a little bit about how their government.
What is it? A website?
Goliath.
Book. Okay.
That's good info.
Okay. I heard of that actually.
Yeah, he's been there and he describes the general feel of the government. from this point of view. So.
It's pretty easy book to read, actually. It's kind of like a written blog post style.
Yeah.
So.
Have you guys actually been in the West Bank?
Yeah.
You've been to Israel?
Yes.
Have you? Neither place?
I'm Eritrean. I don't have actually familial connection.
Okay, I was curious. Have you? I have been to both. I was just curious because a lot of people I know who go there realize that there's not actually such a bad in the.
It's
media,
not exactly a
such
war.
What part of the West Bank were you in? Were you in like the settlements, or were you in actual?
I was a little bit outside the West Bank, or I was outside some of the settlements. I did go to Hebron, which was like 98% Arab city, and that's like a different argument, I guess, about like ties to that particular city. But it's not like I was just in like Gush Etzion, like Jewish places. So I was just curious.
Yeah, actually going there, I think, makes you realize the reality of it rather than just seeing articles online and videos. Even Israelis, when they go, we just had a speaker, David Sheen. He was talking about the African asylum seekers in Israel, and he was talking about how as soon as he got there, as soon as he moved to Israel, and he realized how the construction workers had to go through these checkpoints and literally wait for 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon. And he realized that right away, right as he got there. That's so unjust. So, there's a lot of things you can realize there. And then when I went there, I realized that there's such strict travel. Traveling around the West Bank is so hard. Even like here, if it was 2 cities, 10 minutes away, Temple Chandler, there it would take a couple of hours.
Right.
Because you have to go around the wall or something, you know.
Right.
Also, I think that violence tends to be invisible if you aren't the one, being attacked by something, right? Like you look at the U.S. and you say, well, there are women in Congress. Does that mean that violence against women is over? And we have like the police department, right? And most people probably don't think much about the police. We think they protect our rights. Well, and then you look at stop and frisk and what they do to Black and Latino communities, right? And so I think it's really important to like look beneath the surface, right? Lots of things look really, really nice and shiny, but when you investigate a little further, it becomes more obvious.
So I think this is really interesting because I'm actually taking a history social thought class, and if you've never taken it, I highly recommend it. It's basically looking throughout society at these different paradigm shifts and how things change. And I think it's interesting to note that whenever there's like you describe it as there's an issue with structure, so you're not getting the certain things you need. Peace can never be accomplished then, because if that's happening, then you're going to react violently, and not always violently, but if you're restricted in that way, you can't even come into democracy, because in order to get to that level, you have to have all your basic needs met. And so right now, I think for some people that's really just not happening. So just from a historical standpoint, and if you look at, obviously this is not a comparison between the two at all, but after the Berlin Wall came down, for instance, look at how things changed. So once that is removed, so you've been talking about how what happened before before the rockets were fired and why there aren't any now. But
there's still rockets. It said suicide bombing because rockets can go over a wall, suicide bombers can go through.
Oh yes, well without the suicide bombers. So what happens is when you remove that though, since you've already instituted it, I think you'll find more readiness to negotiate if that is removed. So no matter what, it will create more peace.
So suicide bombers will stay at a really low level if we remove the wall.
Honestly, I think
like by social thought.
Yes, according to everything that has been shown in the past, since the ancient Greece, it would be.
Also, I don't think you have to worry about Hamas being re-elected or something, because definitely over 90% of Palestinians don't support them or support nonviolent methods, and this is what they've called us to do.
I don't know if they were elected particularly democratically or not. I'm just saying, they are the leaders now.
There are even other Arab countries like Egypt that is waging a war against Hamas right now.
Right.
And just 2 weeks ago, the Obama administration refused to sell them any Apache helicopters.
Egypt or Hamas?
They refused to sell Egypt Apache helicopters, and Israel said this is a bad idea. You shouldn't restrict the sale of these helicopters to Egypt because Hamas is going to take over the Sinai if you don't. So yeah.
Yeah, and Egypt also has like a security barrier with Gaza.
Yeah.
Is there going to be like a?
Because they don't want Hamas to come into Egypt.
Right, but do you criticize Egypt as well?
That's actually part of the problem too.
Is that
Because you're blocking Gaza. You're not blocking Hamas within Gaza. You're blocking the people from getting the food and everything else. You know, the humanitarian aid too.
Are you critical of Egypt as well? I was doing that question.
Oh,
Yeah, a lot of us are, yes.
Okay, alright. Just curious.
Yeah, definitely Egypt, the Khaliji states, Gulf states, Syria, oh my God, Syria. I mean, all these countries are all very culpable. Like we said, we don't want to exceptionalize Israel. There's, a lot of people have a lot of hand in these problems.
Hopefully, with this Arab Spring, we get better leadership and they fix the borders.
Any other questions?
Is that it?
With that,
that's it.
Conclude.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you so much.
Should I open the petition?
Yeah, I guess. We have a petition. If you want to support the bill, we have a petition online. During live, you have a computer set up to sign it. So if you want to support the bill, just do it right there.
Okay, I'm going to take out.
Later, man. That's it.